Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative Podcast. This is the podcast where digital discussions in the worlds of pop culture, social media, sports, music, all that jazz. As always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis. On Twitter, I go as PD Beats. My guest this afternoon, I'm pretty excited to have them because not only are they INDYCAR drivers, but they are also contestants on season 30 of The Amazing Race at CBS. I'm talking to Alexander Rossi and Conor Daly. Guys, welcome to Popternative.
What's up, guys?
Thank you.
Right off the bat, talk a little bit about how that came to be. Who kind of had the idea of you guys? Because a lot of people know that you guys are roommates, but who had kind of the idea of you guys going on The Amazing Race together? When did that kind of start percolating as an idea?
Well, INDYCAR did. It was neither of our ideas. They came to us and asked if we'd be interested, and it was a pretty easy yes. So it was as simple as that, really.
I mean, a lot of people understand that, being INDYCAR drivers, competition is kind of in your blood every day. You know what I mean? You kind of don't stop getting ready for competitions. I mean, Conor, we'll start with you. Was this opportunity on The Amazing Race, was that kind of like not even a second thought? Or did you kind of have maybe some doubts, or you weren't sure? Were you familiar with the TV show at all?
Yeah, I actually watched it in high school. Actually really enjoyed it. So for me, it was kind of a no-brainer. An opportunity on national television show on a big network, which was great. So not only would it help probably both of us, our images, but also our sports image, hopefully.
Say, Alex, you kind of agree with Conor a little bit. I like the idea of it helping the image kind of, it's an opportunity to kind of give exposure to INDYCAR as well, right? Because it's a huge show.
Exactly right. That's kind of what we saw it as. I mean, it's our kind of responsibility as Rising INDYCAR Series drivers to promote the sport as much as we can in different avenues. And, as the fan base and the popularity of the sport is kind of rebuilding, it's our duty as drivers to kind of make the most opportunities happen, and to be on one of the most successful reality shows on the biggest network is one of those opportunities that you can't pass up.
Speaking of opportunities, speaking of popularity, I like that you brought that up, Alex, because social media is huge. Both of you guys are pretty active on social media, especially with the show The Amazing Race, the live tweeting, the talking to fans and everything. Talk a little bit about, because I was curious to find out about it. Talk a little bit about the social media fan base in INDYCAR for Eisen. I mean, what kind of a fan base is it? Is it like I'm sure it's a very passionate fan base, but talk about the role that kind of social media plays for drivers like yourself. We'll start with Conor.
I think INDYCAR is doing a really good job at producing content. I think they do probably a lot more than, let's say, other racing series would, and there are now, people like NASCAR and Formula One are sort of trying to catch up when it comes to, pumping out social media content. I don't think, the teams are also trying to catch up, but I don't think they see the value in it as much as there is. I think social media is supremely, it's king right now. I mean, if you're a huge star on social media, you can make a living off that, or you can be, an entity, off of that. And I think that some of the teams are still a little old school when it comes to, realizing whether it's, if you got a popular driver on social media and that can also drive, it's probably good for your sponsors. But I think the guys that are well established are realizing that doing more and more social media is probably going to help their entire package. So I think it's a good, it's a good thing for us for sure to build our brands and just go from there.
Alex, a lot of people know that you have won the Indy 500 in 2016, and a lot of people are comparing that. I mean, that's one of the biggest spectacles in the world. You can compare that to the Super Bowl. You could bring that's up there with WrestleMania. I'm a big wrestling fan, but it's just it's up there. You know what I mean? I can't even imagine what your social media outlets look like. Like the day after you won that competition. How, can you even describe, is it, I mean, did your phone break with all the notifications? I hope the notifications were turned off.
Yeah, probably could have. I mean, I don't really know what the exact numbers were but it was pretty dramatic as you would expect, I guess. I had like a combined 1,000 text and WhatsApp messages, which is pretty insane. So that was, I think, the biggest thing. Obviously, the social media grew a lot, which is it's an important thing these days, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
it's what a lot of companies and potential sponsors and partners kind of base decisions off of. So that was obviously a huge thing for me. But equally as huge, hopefully, is the Amazing Race, as we've kind of talked about. And there was, as much as there was incentive to do it to kind of grow the brand of the series, there was incentive to do it to grow the brand of ourselves as individuals and racing drivers, to, hopefully open up opportunities and doors that wouldn't have been there otherwise.
And another thing I wanted to ask, more specific Amazing Race questions, but Conor, you're a big EDM fan. So I was just, curious. About the interactions between different athletes and musicians as well. I kind of see you're very active on social media, but have you ever used social media to kind of interact with your favorite artists? And I'm sure you're like, do you go to those festivals, and social media kind of play a role into that? I mean, I love social media because I can find new music like every day. Like one tweet, I have a new song, I have a new track. I download my Spotify. Do you kind of use does social media come to play with your love for EDM at all?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's initially how I got introduced to a lot of the artists is, people follow each other on Twitter, start talking. Everyone likes racing and everyone likes cars usually. So it's something to talk about, something that we all can agree on, is that people like to go fast. So yeah, a lot of my interactions with artists and people have been through social media. So I use it as a tool to network, but also just to kind of build friendships.
Absolutely. Another thing too, and Alex, you can start this one off. The Amazing Race. I mean, I brought it up in the beginning. It's a competition, and you're used to competitions all the time with your races. I'm sure there was just a lot like more pressure towards contestants like yourself that are athletes that do this all the time because people think that you're kind of used to it, but you've seen it happen where it goes completely the other way. It's like it's the complete opposite, where maybe it was one of those things where the athletes, didn't do as well as people thought, or they did do as well. But was there a lot of pressure, do you think, since day one of the race that you guys were athletes on Amazing Race?
Not really, because to be honest, there's not a whole lot of athletic ability needed to appraise a diamond.
No, absolutely.
Spell a word. So I mean, yeah, I think that fitness plays a part in it, and an important part, but it's not pure fitness. It's the longevity to go without adequate food and sleep and a lot of different time zones and not getting sick and not being jet lagged and tired. I think that's where the general fitness and health and well-being comes into play on the show, because as you get fatigued, you start to make mental mistakes and errors. So, I mean, a lot of the show is more puzzle and mind-based, I'd say,
mental game,
fitness-based. And then on top of that, the people that we were competing against were all professionals in their own fields of life. So I think everyone knew that it was going to be a competitive series. So I think we felt pressure and from that standpoint, but not because we were athletes and the other, team was violinists. I don't think that there was any type of additional pressure because of that.
Conor, how has the reaction been thus far from family and friends kind of watching you on the Amazing Race? I mean, they're obviously like used to kind of watching you during your races of Verizon INDYCAR, but like how has it been, the reaction from people watching the show?
I mean, it's been funny for sure. I mean, it's just crazy to see, we know how much time we spent in all these places so far, and, there's hours and hours and hours we spent. The Belgium leg was probably almost 40 hours that we were there, and it's all, crunched down to a 1 hour episode. So really, people don't get to see a ton of what we're doing. So that's kind of that's what's interesting about it, is if, you'd have to go online, go to the Amazing Race, their YouTube channel, and then all of a sudden you see more, and it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. But it's just amazing to see how it's condensed down, but I think they do a good job at still presenting a really entertaining TV show the way it's edited. So, I mean, my family likes it. I think people have enjoyed watching us so far. You know, we just see how well it goes.
Alex, you brought up, the mental versus the physical part of the game, and I find that really interesting. I mean, do you find that sometimes, like, was there a mix of both, like the mental, physical, or was it like a lot more mental than physical in some regards, like your experience on the show, or was there a little bit of both?
I'd say probably both. Yeah,
both. I mean, we can't really discuss too much because we only did 2 episodes, right? So what you see is what we can talk about. Yeah, I mean, there's both requirements, but I wouldn't say that if you're an Olympic athlete, you're going to automatically be successful. And I wouldn't say that if you are in the top % of coming out of MIT, you're going to automatically be successful. So, I mean, it's a balancing act of kind of 2 things, but also your adaptability, which is unrelated to both physical and mental capabilities. It's just how you as a human being are able to perform in brand new environments and unknown environments. And I think that's really the biggest thing.
Absolutely. I like the idea of the Amazing Race kind of being kind of a medium to kind of promote INDYCAR and what you guys do in your everyday lives. Alex, Conor, what is your favorite thing about being an INDYCAR driver? Is there something, I know there's probably a long list, but is there something that kind of stands out that you love the most about competing in races?
It's just the adrenaline for me. Obviously we're doing speeds that not a lot of human beings get to do, and we get to compete against some of the best drivers in the world. So it's pretty awesome. There's 7 billion people in the world, and there's only 33 spots in the Indy 500 to start. I've got to start 4 of them now, and Alex has already won one, so that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. What's your favorite thing about Alex?
I think the fact that you're always chasing perfection, and as much as you think you've come in and you've done a really good lap, like in qualifying or drove a really good race, there's always elements of it that you can look back on and think that you could have done better and know you could have done better or different. And so that constant chase of trying to do the perfect event or the perfect weekend or perfect lap or whatever you want to quantify it as, that's an addiction. And for me, that's really more than anything else. It's just that almost you're fighting against yourself as much as you're fighting against other people, which is a pretty unique thing.
That's interesting. Well, guys, we'll wrap up. But thank you guys so much for coming on the show, and it's really cool to hear your perspectives. Now it's time to plug away. Where can people follow you on social media? What do they need to know about the Amazing Race? Like plug away.
Well, you need to watch it on CBS every Wednesday night.
Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Yes. So then, my social media is all at Alexander Rossi. So pretty straightforward.
And I'm at Conor Daly 22 on Instagram and Twitter, and yeah.
What is the 22?
I've always been 22 in my career at racing, if I could.
Except last year.
Except for all in IndyCar,
yeah.
Great, guys. Well, thank you guys so much, and all the best in the future.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.